Okay, so here is my first gardening movie ever. Uh, I'm showing you my garden. I suppose I could record it while I talk, but anyway, I don't know how yet. So here's some pictures of my garden and I'll narrate them. As you can see, this is my water box. And what a water box is a way to water your grow bags all at the same time. And of course, there are some for sale that you can water one bag at a time. And some people use wading pools or things like that to do bigger ones. But I wanted something that was a little more organized, and so we decided to make these. So these are 2 feet by 8 feet. And as you can see, they are covered with AstroTurf. And what the AstroTurf does is dissuade slugs from wanting to climb it. For some reason, slugs do not like AstroTurf, probably because it's prickly. I think I can get this in other colors besides green. The green is a little green. But anyway, this is what I had. And I'm going to show you how I created this water box. And they do work very well. I'm using them inside the greenhouse. This is outside the greenhouse. It has some cabbages, some celery, some beans. They're not very organized at this point, but the nice thing about grow bags is it doesn't matter. You can just shuffle them whenever you feel like. So if something is too crowded, you take one out, you put another one in, no problem. You'll see that this is kind of a weird size. I made these on my sewing machine out of some landscape cloth, and those work very nicely. However, I have noticed that there are brands available now quite cheaply now. There's one called Atlantis Hydroponics that has a good bunch of these in very small sizes, from 1 gallon to 3 gallons and on up, with handles for $1.20 each. I mean, it's very, very reasonable. So you don't have to make your own now. Back when I started, it was very hard to buy ones that were decent. And now they're beginning to become for sale, which I think is wonderful. Anyway, the bags just set in this water box, and then you can put the hose in there and water all of them at the same time. Some people have asked me, do they grow algae? And yes, they do. See, you can see it right on the side. And you know what? I don't care. So, if you care about algae, you can let them dry out in between waterings or whatever. This is a little shady right now because of this is the greenhouse and it's getting towards sunset. But this area of the garden is usually sunny, which is why I chose it. So this is the box. And you can see that it's basically some 2x6s. They have been made into box shape. Basically, there's a couple of screws on each side. People who know how to do carpentry, like that guy there, this is no big deal. And he just put it together in a couple minutes. And that was wonderful, and it's very sweet of him to do it. He also leveled this land here and made sure it was very, very level. As you'll see, that's not as necessary as you might think, but it is nice having level land. We put some heavy-duty landscape cloth underneath, which will discourage weeds, and we'll probably put some beauty bark on top of that. But in the meantime, we have the box, and it's just sitting on the landscape cloth. Now the next step is to cover the box with black plastic, and we basically just took some builder's plastic and covered it over the box, and then used a staple gun to staple it in place. Now later on I figured out that you don't really need a staple gun. There's a better way to do this, but a staple gun works fine. And the black plastic is builder's plastic, so it's pretty heavy duty. It's not as expensive as pond liner, say. The next thing we did was to fill the black plastic with some water. And you can see there's maybe an inch of water in there. And the idea here was, one, to check the leveling, because my builder companion, aka my husband, likes things really level and nice. And he did a wonderful job of it, as you can see. But also this holds the plastic down to make it easier to actually staple it correctly. And again, it's stapled. I like my later idea better, but the staples work. The main thing is to put the staples on the outside because that is going to make a hole in the plastic. And so you don't want to put a hole on the inside because that'll make the water leak out. So filling it with water at this stage also makes sure that there are no holes in the plastic, and since some of this was kind of used plastic, that's a very good idea. If you don't want to buy black plastic here, you can use pallet covers, which you can get for free in a lot of places. It's basically heavy-duty plastic they use for covering things like wood stove pellets or whatever at the co-op. So they're going to cover this whole pallet of things with this big plastic, which you can use as a raised bed garden. You can use it for lots of stuff, but you can also use it here. But you may have places you have to patch. So sail tape will work to patch it, or silicone or whatever you would use to patch a swimming pool, say. And so you have to make sure that you don't have holes in it at this point. So the next step is to add some landscape cloth. Strike that. This is a capillary cloth. So landscape cloth is down here, and this is the stuff that keeps the weeds from growing through. Although I might have to patch that area with some holes. But this stuff here is called capillary cloth, and you can get it at Farm Tech. It's basically a kind of felt that allows the water down here to seep up to here and cover the whole thing. And this is great stuff. It means you don't have to have something totally flat. It also means that if you want, you can add spaces under here to add, a couple inches of water, so only the wicking happens up here rather than soaking the plant. And whether you want to do that or just actually soak the plant in 2 inches of water is kind of a command decision, and I don't have a good answer of which is the best way. A lot of plants really don't seem to care, especially not around here because most plants are soaked all winter anyway. But you can decide what you want to do, and this wicking cloth will allow, capillary cloth will allow you to do it according to the way you want to do it. So what we did here is cut a piece here, and I'm experimenting. One of these boxes has spacers, so it actually sits a couple inches up, and then the water reservoir down underneath wicks up to water the plant. Or another one I just let sit down at the bottom and let them sit in the water. So we'll decide which works better. At this point I don't really know, but it's easy enough to change later. So we just cut a piece of 2 feet by 8 feet capillary cloth and laid it at the bottom. And the next thing we did was add AstroTurf to the outside. Why AstroTurf? Okay, because AstroTurf, slugs don't like it. It's stickery and plasticky and sharp and blah. Anyway, they don't like to go on it, is what I've noticed. And so by putting it around the outside, it just kind of creates a little bit of a barrier for them. It's not 100% because the plants tend to come over the side and get down to under there, and then they can climb on board. But it's better than nothing. And black plastic, slugs love black plastic. They climb that black plastic, and they'll come and hide out here, and they'll just live there just fine because it's nice and wet. So you really would like to discourage them, and AstroTurf works. Now it could be it'll work better if it's on the ground around the box. But I opted to try this method first. So what we did is put AstroTurf around the box. Now the first thing we wanted to do was to staple it, and the problem is the staple gun wasn't working very well, and it didn't want to go through there, and it wanted to bend the staples, and it just wasn't being very compliant. So I thought about it and came up with a better answer. And here's my better answer. I took some landscape cloth staples and bent them into a shape like that. Now, this outer part will go into the ground on the outside, and the inner part is curved here so it does not accidentally make holes in the plastic. And so you can just kind of clamp these on the outside and it holds everything in place. And I think this is going to work really well.